it's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story Podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hello, listeners, and welcome back to Her Success Story. Today, I have a dynamic and incredibly interesting woman in staying with our theme of women in the C-suite. Today, we're talking to Candace McGraw. She is the CEO of the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky International Airport. What's interesting about it is she has surpassed all others airports, and Candace is going to correct me on my stats because I'm so not the stat person. But the growth that Candace has impacted in the Cincinnati Northern Kentucky Airport, and it's called CVG for short, has been enormous. She's had an impact of doing deals with Amazon, DHL, as well as a new airline that I believe is called WOW. And I'm going to ask you to correct me on that. Candace is also, came into this as an attorney, as from the legal aspect, she's involved in an enormous amount of different boards, women's groups, as well as she's a mother. So we have that alignment as well. And she's done this all. We're women of the same age, just two different cities, various different accomplishments. So without further ado, welcome, Candace. Tell us, jump in, say hello.
Well, Ivy, thanks for having me. And I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and your listeners about sort of what's going on out there in women in the C-suite. And so far, so good. All your numbers, all your background was correct. And unfortunately, I've learned to become the stat person, so I won't bore your listeners with all of those. But great stories going on here.
So you jumped in, you became involved with CVG back when? So give us a little bit of this timeline.
Sure. So I can give you a little background. I was, as you mentioned, I was a municipal attorney. You know, my background was one of wanting to go into public service. So I had a bachelor's and master's degree, went to law school, and thought I was going to be one of those kids that went to Washington and changed the world and righted all the injustices. Instead, I met my husband. We got married, had our first child, and so when life intervened, we thought we had to be more practical. So we moved from Pittsburgh to Cleveland, and when I moved to Cleveland, I became a lawyer for the city of Cleveland. Thought if I can't right all the injustices in the world, I'll at least focus on the city in which I'm living. So was an attorney in the city of Cleveland, and just by happenstance, the city owns the airport in Cleveland, and I became the attorney for the airport and fell in love with the business, and that's how I became associated with airports. And so I was in Cleveland for a number of years, but moved to Cincinnati at the end of 2009 and assumed my current role as CEO in July of 2011.
So when you stepped into this position in July of 2011, what was the situation with CVG at that time, and where is it today?
Well, so I'll tell you, when I moved here, the airport was sort of in a tenuous position. Delta had been a large fortress hub here in Cincinnati, and they had made the decision to move most of the service to either Atlanta or Detroit. So I came in as the number 2 as chief administrative officer in a situation where, the flights were down probably about 75% from where they were at their peak.
Nice.
So the fellow,
that's quite the number.
Yeah, 75%. Yeah. So it was not, unfortunately, it was not a good situation in terms of passenger service. But the one thing I could see was all the potential that we did have going on. There were, so many good aspects. Well, quite unexpectedly, the fellow who was the CEO, my boss, and a good friend of mine, was forced to resign. And I took his role as CEO. So it was rather sudden. It was not expected, but knew I had to get in there and try to stabilize the business. So, the first thing we said we had to do was, stop the bleeding, right? And have a good conversation with the carriers at that time. I had a very good relationship with the Delta people. Said, let's have an honest conversation about where you're going with your business so I can really help plan my business. and having those authentic conversations with our stakeholders, and coming up with a plan then on how we then could exploit sort of our assets here and grow our business. So in 2000, whatever it was, 9 or so, we were at our lowest point. We had close to maybe 5 million passengers. This year will end this year with 9 million passengers. I'm happy to say, so I'll give you a statistic
almost
here.
Doubled.
Yeah, in
less than
those
10 years. Nice.
Right. Yeah. So kind of the stat that I'll leave you with, the one that we're really proud of here. In 2017, we finished the year as the fastest growing airport in the United States for passengers. So our passenger base was up, 16.5% when the national average was about 3.5%. So, we've been able to turn the corner, experiencing a lot of great successes, and, we're really proud of that here.
So stepping into this role, let's not lose sight of this isn't the only thing you do. So you have a husband, you have several children.
Right.
Let's look at Candace, the woman. How do you, move all the moving parts?
Well, I have to say, not often very well. There's, I'm going to jump in early on with a lesson I only learned, say, a few years ago, fairly recent in my 55 years of living, and I wish I had learned it earlier. You look around and you see all these women who seem to have it all, right? Very successful, and their personal lives are all, fabulous. And every woman thinks she should be able to have it all. And you think to yourself sometimes, oh shoot, why don't I? And I was sitting at a dinner table one night with a lot of very, very successful women, and we were having this conversation. And a woman said, well, you can have it all, but sometimes just not at the same time, right?
Exactly.
So you have to take components of it. So sometimes your professional life will be going really well. Sometimes your personal life will be going really well. It's not all that frequently that they both mesh together at the same time, right? So,
and I agree wholeheartedly. I became a business owner back in the day when my oldest, my 26-year-old, was about a year old. So in navigating it all, it's like, yep, we can definitely have it all. Definitely not always at the same time. And are you just open to, kind of playing the priority things? Like, so today, priority wise. So here's a short little tidbit of a story. My assistant, who I just had a meeting with before we jumped on our call, it's her 2.5-year-old's first day of like daycare preschool. And I said, checked in with her, how you holding up? And she goes, oh my God, can I make it to 5:45? She goes, I'm sure my daughter will be fine. But the question is, can I make it to 5:45? I don't have the focus that I usually have every other day at work. And I said,
right.
Get it. This is that day.
Right. No, I think perhaps women in particular are hard on themselves when you don't function at 100% at all times. But, it is about balance and priority, and sometimes your focus has to be one place versus another, and that's okay. I don't think women should be as hard on ourselves as sometimes we are. That work-life balance is particularly hard to find the right balance, I think.
You know what? I threw out work-life balance eons ago, and I do work-life priority.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Today. Yeah, that's a fabulous approach. I think I'm going to start borrowing that and talk to people about, forget the balance, let's say, priority for the day.
Right,
yeah.
Because like balance to me is that seesaw as a kid, and you only balance for that moment, and you're going to fall, you're going to go up, or you're going to go down, you're going to go somewhere, so I'm going to throw out the balance and stop trying to balance forever on the seesaw. And I'm just going to say, sometimes this is up and sometimes this is down. Different days, different strokes.
I think that's fabulous. I think I've learned something new today. So thank you, Ivy.
You're very welcome. So share with us, in turning CVG around, you shared with me a story before about expediting not just negotiations, but being at the speed of business, which is what we were talking about, and the evolution of that business. So What I could load this question this way and say, so Candace, tell me about the fastest negotiation you ever had.
Yeah, no. Yeah, well, so interestingly, we're not an overnight success story in that, we had to assess what our assets were here. And during the Great Recession, while all of this was going on, we said, what do we have that works for us? We were very land rich here. We have a great location. We did a lot of behind the scenes work to say we knew we could build a passenger service, so focused on that. We have a great cargo operation with DHL already here. We're their North American headquarters for all their flights, so that was a huge
Beautiful.
asset. Yeah, beautiful. But we also knew we had a lot of land, and we knew we could use it for a variety of business developments, which we have done. We've developed, probably about 300 acres over the last 3 years, 2-3 years, and then we were approached by Amazon, and they were looking for a home for their prime air hub. They're getting into the air cargo business. Now they ship all of their packages via other carriers, and now they're starting their own airline. And so they approached us in the fall of 2017 and said we were one of the airports under consideration. Fortunately, we had done all our homework in advance. We had all the prep work done on what parcels we could develop. We had done our homework on what utilities we had, all of those sorts of things. And so then when they approached us, in terms of operating at the speed of business, they said to us, we'd like to have a deal done by the end of the year, or shortly thereafter. Can you keep up with us? And I said, we'll move as quickly as you can, because we're all about operating at the speed of business and being business friendly, right? As you're trying to grow your business, you have to meet your customers and your stakeholders wherever they are. And we had a team that was ready to do that. And we negotiated hard over the holidays, exchanging drafts of documents on Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, and we were fortunate to announce the deal in January of 2017. So Amazon's going through some regulatory approvals right now. We're hoping to get that early next year and see a shovel in the ground shortly thereafter. And they're going to develop close to probably about 1,000 acres here at the airport, which will mean thousands of jobs and, over $1 billion, if not more, in investment here in our community.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it is a beautiful thing, right? Because, we're all about, the airport as a business is important, but I really try to focus on what it means for the people here, right? And we talk a lot with our folks here about it means, grandma can go see her grandchildren in Florida, and, Johnny can go for an interview. We can ship a good to, Bahrain overnight. But what it really means is, people can pay their mortgage, put braces on their kids' teeth, send them to school, and, make a sustainable community.
And that's the result of great business, is being able to actually build great community.
Oh, it's so important, right? I think we all have to take responsibility for trying to make our corner of the world a little better, and that's what we try to do here at CBG.
And it's one corner at a time.
Exactly. I always try to say to folks, like, look, if you take care of your little piece of it, and then we'll come back and we'll figure out how to knit it together. But if everybody sort of takes responsibility for their piece, their corner, you're going to end up with this amazing quilt in the end.
So it is so beautiful to see you as as a woman, as a CEO of a major airport, doing great, expansion and new business. What do you see for women, in the world coming up, women who are looking to either embrace the C-suite or reach their level of their goals, their leadership? What is working out there for women today, and what is some of those things that we still need to navigate?
Well, I think, so you mentioned I'm a mom. I have a daughter who's 21, and it's wonderful. She and I have these conversations about sort of my perspective on things, hers. I know she feels, the world is her oyster. She feels no inhibiting factors whatsoever, which is so empowering. I think women of any age, right, if you can identify what is your priority, where do you want to go, give it a voice. Talk to people about it. Ask for help on how to navigate there. Sit down with some of my friends, and we joke that a man will see a job description will list 10 criteria, and if there are two for which he meets, he'll immediately apply for a job. Where a woman normally will say, "Oh, if I don't meet all 10 and I don't do all 10 well, they won't even apply." I think women have to get out there, take a risk, not be afraid to fail, realizing that's part of the process, and just give a voice to what your dreams are. And people will want to help you. I believe. I do think, particularly other women, will be very empowering. There's a lot of good guys out there as well, right?
Yes.
That will help you along the way if you just say, "This is where I'd like to go."
So you shared with me, well, actually, I saw this on an interview you did, and then I was like, okay, Candace, you have to tell me more about it. And I want you to share with our listeners. So you're part of women's communities that support you. Share with us not just about what you do with it, but why you do it.
Yeah. So, I mentioned, so I'm involved in two groups of women that are both fabulous, successful, fun women. One are business leaders here in Cincinnati, that we get together, once a month. We share drinks. We go away together once a year, and it really is just about empowering each other, talking about our successes, talking about our failures, talking about where we could have done better. And we have a similar group of women airport CEOs. That's a much smaller club out there, I have to say. It's predominantly a man's business, but there are more of us. And we get together on a conference call every other month. We meet regularly at our various industry conferences, and we go away together a weekend a year as well. And I think both of them are about just finding it is a sense of community, a friendship, people with whom you can develop bonds and trust, and let your hair down or voice some frustrations or be your go-to folks when you need an answer. And what I find amazingly about both groups are we celebrate the successes of each other. There's a perception out there sometimes that women can be catty or don't want to be helpful to each other. I have never found that throughout my career or my personal life. I think women can be incredibly supportive of one another.
I agree. I think women are great supports of one another. I think the cattiness, you get out of it somewhere. It turns around in your early 20s. It might be at 20, you're in the middle of college and all of a sudden it's like, you know what, that's no longer important. How do we support and help each other? And I think, women in their 20s forward, all of a sudden become their greatest advocates of other women and greatest supports.
I do. I agree with you. I think if you focus, as opposed to, I don't know, it's always that glass half full, right? If you focus on someone else's success and their good things, I do believe that good karma rubs off and it comes back to you, right?
So a question for you. In your journey, you're open, you said you were 55, I'm 56, we're about the same era here. What is, one of the two surprises that have showed up for you in this journey that you have led to what is your success today?
Yeah, a few surprises. One, that it's been such an amazing ride. In my wildest dreams, I could not have imagined all the great things I've been able to do. And I do think, with the people I have met, people who I think are successful, focus on it with a sense of gratitude. So I think the things I've been able to do is just amazing to me. One sort of twist on it in a negative way. Well, when I first took my position here, I had never, I think, either experienced or even witnessed sort of gender discrimination. And I was surprised to learn I was a girl when I moved here and took this role. I never knew that, right? And for some people that was an issue, and it was interesting to me. That was a surprise, and it was just interesting to figure out how to navigate that. And so that was a surprise along the way.
how did you, once they said, "Oh my goodness, we have a woman," and you turned or looked over your shoulder and you said, "Where?" And
Yeah,
Will
exactly.
talking to you. How did you turn them
I,
around?
I think, well, I think winning people over with your competency, with, biting your tongue every now and then when you have to, just staying focused on mission and delivering results, then I think all of a sudden gender disappeared. Right? I became a competent business leader in their eyes, not like the woman business leader.
Yeah. And I love what you said, focused on mission and deliver results.
Oh, without a doubt, right? That's the key to any business success, is to just stay focused on your mission. Don't get caught up in rabbit holes that don't lead you anywhere, or the things that are an energy drain. What is the mission and what's going to get you there? And surround yourself with a team that's going to be helpful to that mission. And I don't know. I'm privileged to work with such wonderful people here, and I think it's because we all know where we're going, where our strengths are, right, and play to those individual strengths and help each other through our weaknesses. Key, stay focused on mission.
I love it. I'm actually writing it down, making sure we get this in so many of the notes, although we all re-listen to this. Tips for our listeners. If you had one or two great things for the people who listen to her success story to take forward into their careers, their lives, their businesses.
I would say, again, surround yourself with people who have positive energy, who are doing good things. What's that old book? You become the 10 people with whom you surround yourself, right? So are you in environments that are going to breed success? Be it, are you, pursue your craft, get a good education, always volunteer for projects that are going to stretch you. I think that's amazing. I think find only recently do we call them mentors, right? Back when you and I were earlier in our careers, it was just find a helpful person, right? That is willing to share with you some of these stories, and be open for discussion. So I would say those are a few things I would say that are vital to becoming successful or being successful. I also think, take pleasure in the small successes. Any small victory, celebrate it and feel good about it. Don't keep, forgetting about these small things along the way, waiting for the big prize at the end. Enjoy the journey.
I can't agree more. Enjoy the journey. Every day we're here, every day is a gift. And it's a gift of what we can do and what the impact we can make and meeting others. And I love that you said about surrounding yourself with positive energy. And I'll take that and say, I truly believe in surrounding myself with positive energy and positive people. Because we do become the 10 people we surround ourselves with. So, gee, do you want the Debbie Downer?
Yeah, no, exactly, right? I think exactly. And I think even people that, I don't know, speak poorly of one another. I mean, you want to be around people that are empowered and energizing and, look for the good in others, right? Because it rubs off. It is contagious.
And I also love your reference to gratitude. I think a great gratitude practice is a beautiful impact on a fabulous and positive life.
Yeah, no, I agree, right? We all experience sort of hardship or, nobody gets out of this unscathed, right? But there is something good about everything that happens, even the bad things. And I don't know, I practice it, try to practice at night, right? You go to bed and you say, all right, what are some good things that happened today? Or is there a positive side to this horrible event that just happened? There must be, right? And I try to focus on that. That's the way I get through the day.
So how can our listeners find out more about you and be in touch with you or, learn, follow you?
Sure.
All these wonderful words of wisdom. How do we continue to learn more?
Yeah, no, a couple ways. So I would invite your listeners, go to cvgairport.com. That's our website. It tells our story. It can also be followed on Twitter. And one thing we didn't talk about, I would invite your listeners to learn about, we have a great airport industry association. So if they're interested in that and some of the great women that are in it, I happen to be chair of that association this year and next, and also part of their world board. And it's fascinating, the women's stories around the world. And I think some of them are featured on that website, which is for Airport Council International.
Wonderful. Once we end the recording, I'm going to make sure I have that link from Candace, and it will be in the show notes, listeners. So thank you. Candace, thank you for being here. I know busy, I'm sure all your days are action-packed and busy, and for you to take this time out of your calendar to join with myself and all the listeners that tune into her success story, I greatly appreciate it. Remember, Candace McGraw, it's CVG, the Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky Airport. You are a woman who's made a difference and has enlightened so many of us on and shared, the good and the bad of what we can do. That, limitations are only brought on by ourselves. And you're a great example of seeing what you create, and you created a way to achieve what your goals were. And thank you for sharing it with our listeners of how they can then achieve their own goals.
Well, I'll tell you, Ivy, it's been a real pleasure. It was great talking with you and sharing with your listeners, and I've enjoyed our conversation, right? And so now I'm going to focus on work-life priorities. So I learned something too, so thank you.
Love it. Remember to check the show notes. Remember to subscribe to Her Success Story and leave a review. Leave some comments. Let us know who you want to hear from so we can always deliver for you consistently. See you next week.